Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're just going to be doing a small quick video basically on what transpired during today's podcast. When Phil started talking about doing the upgrades and everything, the two parts that he purchased for this gaming PC that he has planned to buy, there was kind of a spurg out between him and the Dents. Basically, you have a bunch of idiots trying to tell another idiot that doesn't know anything about what he's purchasing on what he should purchase. And there's a lot of confusion that was put forth on Phil's stream. So we're just going to go over really quick here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time just going over. We're just going to do a few debunks on everything here and then let you guys go. So let's take a look at this video right now.
I've been jumping on a lot of these deals. I bought a brand new PS5 controller that I showed you yesterday, and I used for Bloodborne. And
a quick shout out to Raw Phil for the video. I can't use Phil's actual stream because the idiot still hasn't uploaded the level 1 podcast video from this morning. Yeah. Take it for what you will.
Actually worked really well. It was working better than my old one, which was having issues with the R1 bumper. I bought two universal power supply battery backups, one for this side of the office and one for that side of the office. I needed them because my old battery backup had died earlier in the year and I had forgotten to buy another one. And then
the battery backup is a good thing to have. I have it on all my devices here. I have it for my gaming PC, my streaming setup here. I've got one in my home theater. I have one in my for my parents for their TV and their stuff and everything. It is an excellent thing to have. If you don't have it, I would strongly suggest in getting one. It will save your ass.
And the power went out the other day and I freaked out. I was like, oh crap, no battery backup. That could mean that this is going to screw everything up if the power goes out. All my stuff might shut down and then I'm screwed if it, corrupts something or blows out something. So now I have really good high-end surge protection and battery backups on both sides of the office. So if the power goes out, I'm good to go. Don't have to worry about that. Okay? I have purchased two other things that actually arrived this morning. All right? A storage hard drive for my upcoming new streaming and capture PC. It is a Samsung 980 Pro. Now, I also had another one. This other one, let me show you. This one was purchased for me by a fan, all right, about a month and a half ago, and I installed it in my gaming.
Okay, so when Phil got the 990 Pro for his gaming PC, it was never stated that it was purchased by a fan. It was something that Phil assumed purchased it himself. Now the story has changed. So this is something that's, again, been donated by that fan, Affirm Finance. Basically, Phil gets most of his stuff from OP Boone, and he gets a little bit from Arturo Sanchez, who's just dicking Phil around because Arturo's now been laughed out of the FGC. He was sued by Casual Kev, aka Damian, and that went bad for Arturo. FGCOS is now in the shitter because the Discord's been supposedly taken down and all the mods left and everything because it was just a disaster. The 990 series is a very good NVMe drive. Like I had stated before, when choosing your NVMe drive, make sure you're checking the random 4K read writes max IOPs, because that is what's going to denote how fast, how responsive your computer actually feels. The 990 Pro, even though it isn't a PCIe Gen 5, has probably the highest max IPO, or IOPs, I mean, and the best 4K random read and write. So even versus like a PCIe Gen 5 NVMe, the Samsung 990 Pro is probably going to feel snappier. I don't know why Phil would go with a 980 Pro. I'm just going to check Memory Express here. This is for where I purchase all my stuff from. Like, I don't know why Phil keeps calling it a SATA drive. It's not a SATA drive. It's not an SSD. It's an NVMe drive. And a lot of people in Phil's chat just keep mixing that up. There is a huge difference between SATA and NVMe. You can get SATA M.2 drives, but they're not going to be the speed of the NVMe. We'll just choose Samsung here. We'll take a look at the price difference. So the 990 Pro 2 terabyte is $199, and the 980 2 terabyte is $254.98. Huh. So Bill would have probably been better off buying. It probably would have been cheaper to buy the 2 terabyte. I don't know what the Amazon prices are in the States. I really don't care. I don't want to check. 980 Pro is on the way out because the 990 Pro has been here for like about a year now, so they really don't manufacture them anymore. So I don't know why he would buy a 980. Doesn't really matter. Like, it's still a fast hard drive. You're still going to get 7 gig read and 5 gig read, or 5 gig write, and then the max IOP 4K is really, really good. So that's something that you're not going to have to really worry about. If he does go with the computer that he is looking for, there might be an issue, and we'll get into that here right away.
Gaming PC, so I had tons of storage space. A 3 gigabyte.
A 3 gigabyte. Yeah, that's a lot of space there. No, it's a 4 terabyte 990 Pro is what he has in his gaming PC. He's already filled the 2 terabyte that originally came with it because he was installing all the games and everything. He doesn't uninstall anything. So he's already filled the 2 terabyte and he's on to the 4 terabyte now.
990 Pro with heatsink. Blistering speeds and endless victory, it says. This is a gaming hard drive, meaning this is what you want to put your games on. Okay?
It's not really a gaming hard drive. The Evo series is more of your gaming hard drive. The 990 Pros are more oriented to stability-wise. And I know I'm saying stability-wise on our 990 Pro because when it first came out, there was a firmware issue that caused a lot of data corruption and everything, and that caused the NAND cells to read that they were at like 0 life. That's all been fixed with the updated firmware and everything, and it only affected like 1,000 drives worldwide or something like that. So that's been taken care of. They're more reliable than their Evo series because of the NAND that they use, MLC versus TLC. So there's subtle differences. Realistically, you're not going to notice the difference in speed.
Okay. For storage, for videos and stuff like that, I don't need the heatsink. I don't need the maximum capacity, and I don't need the extra speed. So for this, I just went with the 980 Pro, which is similar. It's just basically a step down from the 990 Pro because it doesn't have the heatsink or whatever. But it's 2 terabytes, and I got this for around $100. I think it was just over 100, like $110.
Like the 990 Pro, you can get it without the heatsink as well. That's not a problem. You're just going to pay more for the heatsink. The issue with the 980 Pro that he bought is only 2 terabyte of hard drive space. Realistically, if you're video editing, like for me, I don't do any local recording to my computer. That is all recorded to my Asus Tor NAS. So like right now I'm doing this video and I'm recording it to my NAS drive. In my NAS drive, I have 990 Pros in RAID 1, and I have 4 of them in there at each 4 terabyte. I can fill one drive pretty easily just by recording in 4K in lossless. Like an hour-long video is probably gonna be about one terabyte or more. It just, again, like if hard drive space isn't the issue, what Phil's going to be using it for, it could fill up pretty quick. And again, like filling a NAS drive, or not NAS, filling a drive based on NAND, you want to keep a certain amount of space for over provisioning. The more you fill up the drive, the slower the drive is going to get. So Phil's going to have to watch, especially with it being 2 terabyte. 2 terabyte nowadays isn't very much, especially when games are averaging like 100 gigabytes in space. Like you install like 10 games, there's a terabyte right there.
Normally, this is $200. So this was a great Black Friday deal. Getting like $90 off the price of a hard drive is pretty darn good. And this is going to go into my new capture streaming PC as the storage hard drive. Okay? And sorry, I keep saying a hard drive. It's a solid state drive. It's an SSD. And I'm saying hard drive like a dummy. It's a solid state drive. Okay? So that's going to go in there.
It isn't a solid state drive. Like it is, but it's called an NVMe drive. Solid state SSDs, that's something completely different. NVMe because it's M.2 over PCI Express.
Now, hopefully it's good. I don't know. We'll find out. I keep saying hard drive. This solid state drive has been amazing. I've been using it for about a month and a half, and all my games are on it, and it runs beautifully. You'd think Samsung, right? Same brand. Hopefully it's going to be just as good. I guess we're going to find out.
We'll discuss the latency issue he's going to face in the big video that I'm going to be doing.
But so far, so good, my experience with this one. So hopefully this one will also be good. Why is this Olympics branded? I have absolutely no idea what this has to do with the Olympics. But as you can see, they probably made it around the time of the Olympics because it has Olympics branding on it. Just say SSD. Okay. All right. Now, I am done with external capture devices. Okay, I like them, and they've served me well for 10 years. But sadly, I hate to say it, it's time to move on and go to something more professional. This current capture device that I use is great quality, but I'm not kidding you. When I stand up, it blinks. I'm not shitting you. Like right now, if I stand up, it didn't do it that time. Half the time.
That's pretty good. I know when we were doing this on Bingo, everybody was laughing because he stood up and nothing happened. More than likely, Phil's probably broken the cable. Like, he's probably stepped on the cable. He's probably kinked it or whatever, which causes that. That's because everything is sitting on the floor. Like, if you've seen images of Phil's room, everything, all the wires, his capture card, everything is sitting on the floor, right? Like, he doesn't have anything routed properly. It's just a complete mess and a pigsty in that office. And external hard drives are, or not external hard drives, sorry, external capture cards are very good. I have one. I know a lot of detractors that use them and everything. They are perfectly fine. It's because Phil wants to seem, I don't want to say more professional, but that's the way he's thinking. And it really doesn't matter if you have an internal versus external. They're going to do the exact same thing. And there are pros and cons to both. And we are going to discuss this because there could be a serious issue if Phil gets the Skytech computer that he wants and puts the Elgato card in and puts in the 980 Pro. There is a issue that could crop up. I'm not saying that it will, but it is likely that he will see some problems regarding the setup. But we'll get to that when Phil discusses the PC that he wants to buy.
Time. If I just stand up, my whole screen goes black and then comes back. And it says lost signal, and then it comes back. And half the time when I'm playing a game.
I don't know if that's it's probably his HDMI cables that he's probably kinked or stepped on. It could be the USB-C cable or the USB, I think it's a USB-A cable that comes with this capture card. That could be what caused it as well. Again, I'm not sure. It could be a factor of both.
Right? And I'm loading between screens. It goes, oh, no signal or something. I'm like, what is going on? Now I tested all the wires and everything. They're all fine. It's the capture device. It's just wonky. All external capture devices are a little wonky. All right. They've all had their little quirks, but I've used them for a decade, but it's time to go more professional and more serious. So I got the Elgato 4K Pro Performance internal capture card.
Okay, so basically what Phil bought is this here. Okay, now the Elgato 4K Pro, he just bought the most expensive capture card he could find. That's all he did, right? He didn't really choose one appropriate for what he wants to do. Now, the Elgato card is great, and Elgato is owned by Corsair. It'll do everything that Phil wants to do. We can actually take a look here at the specs, and you can compare the differences. Now, is it right here? Okay, so this is the 4K Pro, right? Original cost is $389. It's on sale right now for $319 USD. So that's what Phil has paid, right? So it is expensive, right? And like Phil's complained he doesn't want to spend more than $1,500 on this computer, but he spent like another $500 on the capture card and the hard drive. So this computer is going to be well over $2,000 when it's all said and done. So the pass-through, right? And Phil doesn't need to use the pass-through. He can use because the GPU on his gaming PC has multiple HDMI 2.1 ports, so you can have one cable going to the capture card, one cable going to the TV, with audio pass through and eARC on both. So he doesn't really need to use the pass through. It's pretty much useless. You'd only be using a pass through if you're connecting like a console, unless you're using like a HDMI splitter. Then yeah, that's what you would use. So the option right now for Phil is it's going to give him 1080p, 60, 120, 144, and 240. Same for 1440p, and same for 4K. Now he has to be careful with 4K because it is HDMI 2.1 at 144 hertz and 240 hertz. He cannot use HDR or VRR because the bandwidth is too high. He doesn't have a TV or a panel anyways that can support that refresh rate, so that's going to be out of the question for his pass-through. His 60 and 120 will be fine, but he won't be able to do, like we discussed yesterday, 444 chroma, which is the best HDR, 10-bit HDR. There's just not enough bandwidth under HDMI 2.1, right? It does support variable refresh rate for pass-through, but again, that's not going to work at 144 hertz or 240 hertz for 4K gaming with HDR. So that's just not going to happen. For capture, he can do 1080p 30 to 240, 1440p he can do it 30 to 144, and then 4K he can do 30 or 60. There's no point in Phil doing 4K. I know we discussed yesterday because of how slow Phil's internet actually is. He cannot do 4K streaming. The fact that he plays games at 1080p, there really is no reason for him to be capturing at 4K then, or streaming at 4K. There's just no reason to doing it. He can do HDR capture again. He does need a version Windows 10 or 11. He does need to be using OBS 28 or later. And then his graphics card that he currently has in his PC, the CyberPower, will not do HDR. So he's kind of shit out of luck there. He does need to, though, however, basically get the new PC. Connection is PCIe 2.0 X4. So that's all good. It is a very good capture card. Probably one of the best out there currently. AverMedia has their own versions and everything like that. But this Elgato card is very, very good. It is very expensive. Again, Phil's just not thinking this through. He's just buying stuff based on, he'll just search Amazon and the first thing that comes up he's going to buy.
This thing does 4K 60 frames per second HDR capture, 8K 60 frames per second pass through, and it basically works with everything. It's a great card. It's rated very highly, and it's going to go into my new capture and streaming PC. Okay, so no more using the externals and no more this crazy messy setup here. Instead, all I did is I bought two 15-foot up to standard 8K 2.1 HDMI cables, and those are coming tomorrow. And so what's going to happen
now, this is going to be a problem too. This can be an actual big issue for Phil. HDMI 2.1, they don't recommend going over 6 feet for HDMI 2.1 cables. You can, however, get AOC cables, and I've got these, right? This is what I use. What's it called? Gohen DisplayPort. Gotta find it here really quick. I did not buy them off Amazon, so I can't remember what it's called. Gohen. They're really good cables, and they're AOC cables. They make them about 10 feet or bigger. And those are your fiber optic. Now, the issue, once you go over 6 feet, it is recommended that you go into fiber optic. With 6 feet in copper, due to the signaling and the bandwidth required, typically it will work. I give it 50-50. If you're just using a standard HDMI cable outside of an AOC fiber cable. The AOC fiber cables, they tend to be give you better shielding. They give you better signaling because it's fiber, it's light speed, right? And they're active. Now, what I mean by active is they may require extra power, then you can purchase 5-volt USB HDMI 2.1 adapters. Basically, it's just an HDMI 2.1 adapter, and it has a power cable that goes into a USB-A port, and you get additional power through your USB. I use those on all my devices, even on my desktop here. They are very, very good. Phil, depending on what he purchased, my guess is he's just purchased. Let's see if we can find this. HDMI 2.1. I bet you he has purchased like 2 of these. That's what he purchased. He said only 9 left in stock, right? Is that what he said?
It is basically my PC will have one cable running out to this capture card, and then the capture card will have a cable running all the way out to the TV. Okay? Now, the only
Which he doesn't need to do, right? Again, like he could just have one of the capture card, one of the TV, because he's got dual HDMI on his gaming PC. Then he can just swap those between his consoles for all I care, right? Like it doesn't really matter. Again, he could run into an issue because of the length of the cord. It's trial and error. You'll see these like 8K, 16K cables, but unless you try them yourself, you can read the reviews on these. I always like to read the 1% reviews because I always want to see. Well, I'm not logging in. Sorry. The problem that you can, like, it might work for somebody, it might not work for you, right? So if you get no signal or if you're getting a static screen, then you're gonna have to buy another cable, right? It's just that cable's just not going to work, and we could see that happen to Phil.
only thing I'll have to change up is I'm going to probably have to swap that cable between the PC and the PS5 Pro. Shit, you know what I'm realizing? I need a third cable. Oh, I'm just realizing.
Yeah, so he buys a third
For
cable.
sure.
Let's go on to this PC.
The tubes are for water. Oh yeah. Is mine water cooled?
Oh yeah,
now?
this is where he gets the water cooling. This is fucking good because he doesn't understand what he's bought. Even on his PC that he currently purchased, this gaming PC, yes, it does have an AIO from Thermaltake and everything. Again, he just bought something at random. He has no clue what he's buying. He's just buying.
I don't see any. I don't think it has any water cooling. I don't think so. It doesn't mention that. Cool time for me to do the transition to the new PC. It'll be fun. You know, I'll unbox it for you guys, turn it on, and work through it. You know, setting it up the first time would be pretty fun. Okay, maybe I can do it live. Maybe I can actually install these components live.
I would love to see this because I'd love to see him fuck it up. If it goes as bad as the PC gaming, the gaming PC that he bought, if it goes as bad as that stream, because that was fucking hilarious. Like the Dents didn't know how to do the OOB NRO bypass command just to get him into Windows without having to register. Again, never ever ever use a cloud-based user account. Don't use a Microsoft account. Do the OOBE NRO bypass. If you get a new PC, get into Windows with a local user. Create a local user account. Never ever use a cloud account
On a stream, right? A PC upgrade stream or something, right? I don't know. It could be pretty cool. Exactly. There's things that I need to have money for that I don't have right now. For example, what if my piping bursts? Like I've been warned here in my community that if your piping bursts, you should have a certain amount of money saved up to try to get it repaired or replaced, right? So I need to start having money for that stuff, and I don't.
Oh yeah, and this here, so he doesn't have money to replace the pipes, right? Now, Phil has made since August, I believe it's close to almost 30 grand in just tips and contribution. If you check the tips tracker and everything like that, like it is up there. He's been making almost like 10 grand a month in tips and contributions. That's all gone. Like Phil admits it here on the podcast that it is gone. He's burnt through all that money, and he's just been on spending sprees, right? Like he's bought the gaming PC, even though he says that's donated by that fan of Firm Finance, right? He's bought lights. He's bought the shitty fucking foam in the background there. Bought the washer and dryer. He bought the fans. He bought. He's gonna be buying the streaming PC. He's been buying just right and left. He's just spending. and none of this money is being put aside. None of it money is being put into a 401k or anything like that. This money is just being fucking flushed. And it's as bad as the vest streak, right, from back in 2020, when he basically just had all this extra money and it was just pissed away. He had nothing to show for it, right? So he's just buying all this stuff to improve his streams. Meanwhile, he's really hard up for tips and everything. Like, he is coping hard and begging hard for money. It's going to come back to bite him in the ass, right? And he's not going to be able to make those finance payments.
You know, I don't have credit or anything. You know, I went through a bankruptcy 4.5 years ago. My credit has not recovered yet. It takes about 7 years for credit to come back after a bankruptcy. So
technically, it's about 5 years. Like Meth Bear and I talked about this. He can get a credit card already, and he is financing stuff from Amazon. Like, he financed that TV, right? So he does have credit. He's just hoping he's trying to hold out to refinance his mortgage, which is bad because mortgage rates are still pretty high compared to what he purchased at. So he'd end up paying more in his mortgage. He would get all this equity, yes, but that equity, at like just what's happening right now, would be pissed away pretty quick.
So I need to wait. I'm waiting it out. So yeah, let's see what happens. But I'm hoping for the best. I really am, and I hope that you guys will continue to hang out with me, despite the fact there may be some weird streams coming up of me messing around with a new PC and stuff and getting it working. Right? Okay. Is the new PC air or liquid cooled? I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I know that you really don't want liquid cooling. Like, I'm well aware of that. What just happened? I clicked on it and went away. I'm trying to find my view history. If I can find it from yesterday. Is it? No. This it. This might be it. Nope. Trying to find it. This it. That's it. I don't see any I don't think it has any water cooling. I don't think so. It doesn't mention that.
Yeah, it does.
It's all air cooled.
Water cooled.
No, it might have some water cooling too, which will need to be replaced over time, right? It's not clear. It actually isn't clear. It says nothing in the PC as I'm looking at it looks like water cooling, but then it says,
like, you can see the AIO right there, right? Does the CPU have a fan on it? No, it's just got a water block, right? The other thing I don't like about this is the T-Force memory. I'm not a big fan of T-Force memory. I do not know the version of the 770 or the 4070 Super that's in this. I want to say PNY, but I could be wrong. I don't know what it is. And I do have an email out to Skytech. They did get back to me on the motherboard, so I do know what the motherboard in this unit is. But I asked them for a full system spec. I want the actual model of everything in this models of everything in the PC.
AIO cooling. Is that water cooling? AIO
All
cooling?
one.
You do not need to replace AIO liquid coolers. You don't.
You do. There is permeation. What is this one? This looks like an MSI. Like, it does look like an MSI cooler. It could be wrong, though. I don't know. Let's just bring up the actual page. So this is the Skytech page, okay? And this is what they have in the system. Now, I want to say it's an MSI branded cooler. It just listed as a 360 AIO. They really don't have anything on their site, like spec-wise or anything like that. This picture here, Phil's going to discuss this. This picture is correct because Phil talks about this picture being wrong. It is wrong because this says a Prime Series X670, but it comes with a B650 board, and it's a Prime B650 Wi-Fi.
I don't know anything about this. I might have to replace it over time, though, right? Like, I might have to buy a new replacement cooler. People want to see it. Here it is. This is the case, all right? And see, it says here, Conquer CPU heat. It has advanced AIO cooling to prevent overheating and ensure your system runs smoothly without throttling. I know nothing about it. I've never had a water cooling.
And if you guys think that his other case, like that Tower 300 for Thermaltake, is bad, this one has no air filters on it. So without any air filters, and we know about the dust and shit in Phil's room, and Phil has this sitting on the floor, it is going to get clogged bad. And Phil does not do any maintenance to his PCs whatsoever. So I foresee a lot of issues pretty quick.
Never. Sometimes the pump can die. That is liquid cooled for sure.
If it is an MSI cooler, which I think it is, they are pretty poorly designed, and the pumps can clog. Once that happens, that AIO is shot, right? Like, you can open it up, you can clean it, but then you're going to have to refill it and everything. It's a pain in the ass. That's why I kind of stick to, like, Corsair AIOs. They're typically better build quality. Asus Ryujins are pretty fucking good too. MSIs, I've just seen MSIs and Thermaltakes. I've just seen bad things about them. That and Lion Lee as well. Their coolers have a lot of fucking problems. Their Galahad has a lot of noise issues from the pump, so that's not a good sign.
The tubes are for water. Oh, yeah. Is mine water cooled now? I don't even know if my current PC is water cooled. I have no idea. Maybe it is. Maybe mine's PCIe interface. Interface PCIe. That's all it says.
Okay, so this is when he starts to get into arguments with the Dents about if the card is going to fit or not. The card will fit, okay? The card will fit just fine.
It's PCI times 4. It will fit in anything. If you say so.
Well, we'll fit into a PCIe X1 if it's
okay.
If it's an X4. Like,
I just read what it said. It says PCIe interface, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. Is that PCI Express?
The PCI Express? PCIe, like PCI Express? Yeah,
Surely I will choose game appropriate LED setup. Probably not. Like my gaming PC, I usually set up every day. I set it up to be something appropriate. Today I'm doing this. It's like yellow, white, and red, similar to my background, because it's kind of like hydrogen or like nuclear radiation kind of a deal. I'm thinking. So that's for Stalker. But I doubt I'm ever gonna do anything with this PC. It's gonna sit over there. I'll just have it on a generic setting or something. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure this will fit. Why wouldn't it? Right? So I think this is what I'm probably gonna get today. And then it's just a matter of once it arrives. Number one, booting it up and getting it working. We'll unbox it together. I'll like show it off, and we'll boot it up. We'll get it working. Then once it's booted up and working, I'd power it down again, open it up, and install the capture card and the hard drive, right? Then making sure those work. Then the migration, and the migration is the big thing.
No, it isn't.
The migration is going to be the challenging thing, and I don't know. I'm really nervous.
The migration is stupid. I know Jad actually made a good point. Just start over from new. Get everything new made. Like get new backgrounds, get new overlays, stuff like that. And I agree with Jad on that one. If you want to bring over things like your tips, animations, and shit like that, cool, right? Go right ahead, knock yourself out. But otherwise, I would probably do what Jad recommends. Just do everything new, right? It's new streaming, new setup, new everything. Might as well just do everything else new as well. Everyone still says I'm buying this, so I want to check out.
You see what I mean? I wasn't even here, and I come back. People are still talking in the chat about how all the PC stuff is wrong. I bought the wrong hard drive. I bought the wrong graphics card. I'm getting the wrong PC. Everything's wrong. No suggestions for what's right. Just everything's wrong. That's what I love the best about talking about this stuff publicly, is that no matter what you do, you've done everything wrong, but actually no one's saying here's the right thing, except it's like spend way more money, which I can't do. So,
and then he's also spent another $500 on top of the computer that he wants to buy. Now, he still hasn't bought this yet, so we can just take a look at this, right? So what it is the 7700X on a B650 motherboard from Asus. 750 watt gold power supply. I'm not a fan of gold power supplies anymore. I'd rather want titanium or platinum. You know, they're going to be more money, but they're more reliable. Like this website, this is pretty bad, the way they have this website set up. It's not very knowledgeable. Like all it says is AMD processor, NVIDIA RTX 4070 Super, 32 gigs of DDR5, 5200 megahertz. That's slow, right? Like again, I'd like to see minimum 6000 megahertz memory on an AMD system. AMD does perform better with faster memory. I wouldn't go above 6000 megahertz memory on D&D or on D&D. On AMD, you probably are going to run into crashes and everything, just because it throws the Infinity Fabric out of whack. Um, the other issue with this as well is the 4070 Super in here again is only a dual fan cooler. It is overkill for what Phil wants to do. Again, Phil can just use the mini PC like I do, right? The mini PC works and functions perfectly fine. I am currently filming this on the mini PC, so like, yeah, like it's Phil said it in here this morning. It's like you can't use the mini PC because it's only used for burst stuff like emulation and things. And it's like, no, 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 it's not, Phil. It has proper cooling, it has two fans, it has thermal gel on it, right? Now, let's discuss the big issue here. And this is what I think a lot of people don't understand. Yes, the Elgato card will fit in this computer. And this is the motherboard here that they have gotten back to me with on what is inside the system. We can see from the image here that there are PCI Express 4 slots in here, or PCI Express X16. The thing you need to realize is this does support PCIe both Gen 5 and PCIe Gen 4. Now, the way the CPU works is with AMD, the CPU itself gives 24 lanes. Then you also have additional PCI Express lanes on the chipset. The issue with that, maybe I should actually bring that up here. This will give you a better indication of what to look for. B650 block diagram. Okay, so right here, so your CPU, you have 24 PCI Express lanes, right? Technically, you only have 20 because 4 of those PCI Express lanes are used what is called a DMI connect between the CPU and the chipset. And that's needed for things like IO and everything like that. Now, the other issue that you can run into is like on Phil's case with this system. Now, we can't really use this image as true fact because the motherboard in this system is actually different. Now, on this one here, this is listing a BX670 Prime. This is not what's in the system. It's a B650. And this list shows here, if you can see just underneath the GeForce card, there's 2 X16 slots. That's not what's actually in. That's not what's actually on the motherboard. Here. So it's got 1 X16 slot, and it has a PCI one-time for another 16 max at 4, and then 1 at 1. So unfortunately, Phil is going to have to use this slot here. Now, the issue he can run into is the fact that the M.2 slot, you can see that here. It says 2 M.2. One is PCIe Gen 5. That is this one right here. And that is connected to the CPU directly. That one is already being used by the 1 terabyte drive that is in this system. Okay, that comes with it. More than likely, again, it's going to be a P300 Crucial. The second M.2, which is right down here, which means that Phil is going to have to use this X16 slot because this is a PCI Express 1 slot. Okay, so he can't use these two. He needs an X4 slot. Will fit in the PCI Express X16, and that only operates at a max of X4. This means Phil can run into what's called PCIe bifurcation problems. What that means is on the chipset, the bandwidth is shared between devices, okay? So let's say you have your GPU in here and you have your NVMe drive in here, okay? All your PCI Express lanes are used up on the CPU because your GPU is running at 16, your NVMe drive is running at X4, and you have another X4 taken up for the DMI pass for the chipset. Okay, that means the chipset here communicates directly through to the CPU with a PCI Express X4 lane. All your PCI Express ports or lanes are gone on the CPU. Next up, the PCI Express lanes, you do have extra ones on the chipset. Now, this does add latency problems to it, yes. The bigger issue is compatibility and reliability. Because it's shared resources, you can run into resource conflicts, DPC latency problems, etc. The worst case scenario, the system crashes. Okay. I'm unsure because in the manual for this motherboard, we can actually bring this up here. There's actually a tech spec thing here. Actually, I want to show you guys. So this states to go ahead and take a look at the PCIe bifurcation table. I hate this because it's not hot linked properly. So this brings up, this is the table for PCIe bifurcation. This is going to tell you how the chipset functions. And we just need to find the B650, which is right here. So we can now see exactly which motherboards are going to support it. Now, this is the ones that are in the system right now. And we can see that by populating the PCIe Express lanes and the M.2 lanes, that Phil will run into PCIe bifurcation. And that means that he won't notice the latency. He's not going to notice the issues unless he starts getting errors, random, like not full-blown BSODs, even though that is an issue that he could face depending on how the ports are shared. And again, like I can't find that out because the motherboard manual on these lower end boards is pretty shit. Typically, they will have in the motherboard manual and it'll tell you exactly what is shared. Like on for my board, I have a high end board, like I use a Z790 board, and that tells me exactly how the lanes are shared. In these cheaper motherboards, it really doesn't. So this is the board layout itself. See, it doesn't tell us if this shares bandwidth. All this here is all on the AMD B650 chipset. So the PCI Express X1, you have two of those, and then you have the PCI Express X16 slot, but it only supports X4 speeds. Now, when the M.2 card is populated, which is this is the secondary one here, it may cause issues with this port. I'm not too sure because it doesn't state that. PCIe bifurcation and M.2 settings for RAID function are also supported. Full details PCIe function, please see blah blah blah. And so Phil may need to adjust the PCIe bifurcation in the BIOS so that it works. This motherboard supports two PCI Express cards and two PCIe 4.0 network cards, SCSI cards, and other cards that comply with PCI Express specification. So again, this doesn't tell me what's shared. This just tells me that it functions in X4 mode and for both PCIe 5 and the secondary slot, which is the M.2 2 slot, which is this one here. This is the M.2 2. So it doesn't really tell us exactly how it's bifurcated. Does support USB 10 gigabit, so that's actually pretty cool. But is it third-party controller or second, or is it actually supported by the chipset? Let's find that really. 2.5 gig Ethernet. It's probably going to be Realtek. Still will have to be careful with the driver. The latest driver causes a lot of DPC latency issues, so stay away from that one. So again, it doesn't say. That's why I hate these piece of shit lower end motherboards. Memory support is fine. See, again, it's not telling me. Bias flashback, so if Phil fucks up the bias, he can just use the bias flashback, so nothing to worry about there. Yeah, they don't show anything in the motherboard manual, which sucks. But those are the issues that Phil can run into with this board. And that's going to be probably the biggest issue that he can run into is the PCIe bifurcation. And all that's going to do is, if he does run into it, the motherboard, all you're going to notice is probably like a stutter on the stream, and that's probably going to be about it. That's what I'm going to predict at this point. Worst case scenario, as he's streaming, the system crashes, right? And that's because of the resource conflict, things like IRQs and stuff like that. Even though nowadays we really don't have IRQ errors because of virtual IRQs within Windows itself, it still does occur. You can still see it. Like if you get like an IRQ not less or equal to error, that means either driver or there's an IRQ conflict. Most of the time, if you populate this, like say Phil puts in a card here, like on my motherboard, I have a Z790 Hero. And I made sure, because I use a discrete sound card, I have the AE5 in my motherboard, on my motherboard right now. On my motherboard, I have the bottom PCI Express lane. If I plug into that, it disables my SATA ports. And I don't use SATA, I just use NVMe, so I don't care if those ports get disabled. No skin off my ass, right? But it could be an issue for Phil because I don't know what this will disable or how it's shared. I am pretty sure that these are both shared, the M.2 and the PCI. I don't know why they call it PCI Express 16 because it's only at a max of 4. Whatever, right? It's just a shit motherboard. It's a low end motherboard. It's not a high end motherboard itself. Is this a good buy for Phil? It's overkill. Okay, let's just put it that way. This motherboard, this system that he wants to buy, this Omega, is way overkill for what Phil needs, right? 7700X, which is an 8 core, right? 7700X. 8 core, 16 threads, right? 8 core, 16 threads. So it's an 8 core, 16 threaded processor. It's overkill for what Phil needs. Realistically, if Phil wants to stream at 1080p to kick using the NVENC encoder and then use HEVC or AV1 to stream to YouTube and then use HEVC or AV1 to do local recording, he can more than likely do this on just the GPU alone. He won't need the processor. The NVIDIA 10th gen GPUs and NVIDIA 40 series have dual encoders on the GPUs. So in the next iteration of OBS 31, you actually have the option to split encoding on each of the encoders on the GPU. So say if you want to stream to Kick with one encoder, you can do that on one encoding chip on the GPU. If you wanted to stream to YouTube as well and use the other encoder, that way you're not tying everything up. So Phil can probably get away with doing all three just on the GPU alone without even having to touch the processor. However, if he's using the older NVENC for everything, he could risk just using up all the resources of the GPU, and he ends up with dropped frames again and everything, and the stream will turn to shit. But otherwise, it's very overkill for what Phil needs. Like I recommended in the video yesterday. Realistically, like, these mini PCs are awesome, right? You can use anything like this to stream with. Again, I'm using the trig key that Phil has, that Phil says you can't do it, it'll overheat and everything. That's bullshit. They work really, really good. They have hardware encoding, they have an iGPU, so you really don't need, like, Phil got into that argument with the guy having a discrete graphics card. Yeah, it's nice to have. Yeah, having a 40 series is probably overkill for streaming that Phil wants to do. I don't recommend doing 4K streaming. It's just not worth it. So ultimately, it's going to be overkill for Phil. That rhymes. But yeah, like, he's going to buy this regardless, right? I don't see him not buying it. If he goes for something even more expensive, it's going to be dumb as fuck, right? Yeah, sure, he can go with an X670. He can still suffer from bifurcation issues with PCI Express, depending on where he plugs the card into. That's the worst case scenario, is the PCIe bifurcation. So hopefully that answers everybody's questions from today. I know I got a lot of people asking me about it, like, is the card going to fit? Yes, the card's going to fit. Is he going to run into problems? Probably. He's going to have to work them out himself, right? Like, Phil's not going to listen to anybody, right? He's not going to listen to me, even though I debunk all this shit and can prove it very easily. And plus, the fact that I'm a detractor. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm actually considering maybe taking the day off work once he does get this and he does decide to do, like, a unboxing stream and everything. I would love to actually just do it live and just laugh at it as it goes bad. I may do that. I don't know. We'll see. Like, he doesn't plan, like, he's gonna buy it this week, but he doesn't plan to, like, unbox it for like another 2 weeks or something, from what he said. I don't know, but I want to give a shout out to Rawfill again for having this stream up and running. Well, let me like this here. Wasn't on this yet because I was watching Bingo earlier today. Give a shout out to Jad for Bingo. Yes, I have seen Jad's legs in a kilt. That is true. Jad mentioned it today. I know Meth Bear said it in chat. Yes, I have seen Meth Bear, and I would like to Billy Goat him. But again, guys, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.